Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Raina Diobar, and I'm an assistant director with the Office of Community College Research and Leadership, which, as you may or may not know, is the home of the Council for the Study of Community Colleges. I wanted to just do a quick welcome and thank you for joining us today for this, which is our second webinar in our series of webinars, which are being presented by our 2021 Double Diamond sponsors. Currently, all mics should have been muted. If your mic is not muted, please mute it as we're recording this presentation. You can unmute to participate in any question and answer at the end of the presentation. But with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to our presenters today from Arrupe College of Loyola University, Chicago.
Thank you so much, Raina. We're delighted to be here and be able to share our presentation with you all today and share about our college. I'm going to introduce myself and then turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves, and then I'll get our presentation started right away. My name's Jenny Boyle. I am the Associate Dean for Academics and the Director of Operations at Arrupe College. And with me today, I'll pass it to my colleague, Sarah Shaban.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Shaban. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Success at Arrupe College, and I support the Office of Student Services. Our office supports students holistically through our counseling services, case management, as well as community development and campus ministry.
And we have Isabel Reyes with us.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Isabel Reyes, and I'm the Associate Director of Admission at Arrupe College. Our office recruits and helps students with the application process, et cetera, everything admissions related. I'm happy to be here. And John.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Buthe. I'm an Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs at Arrupe College. Like all my colleagues, I wear many hats, but most recently my focus has been on student retention.
Great. So I'm going to get us started by providing a brief overview of our mission and model. We're going to hopefully leave 15-20 minutes for questions at the end of our presentation, and we're going to move through it, each of us taking different parts of it. So I'll get us started. Our presentation is going to address how we fostered belonging and facilitated recruitment and retention during the COVID pandemic, when students were facing emotional stress, food and housing insecurity, and difficulty adjusting to online learning. A bit about our college. Arrupe College is the associate's degree granting college of Loyola University, Chicago. And we continue the Jesuit tradition of offering a rigorous liberal arts education to a diverse population. Many of our students are first in their families to pursue higher education. We use an innovative model that ensures affordability while providing care for the whole person. And we prepare our students to earn the bachelor's degree in 4 to 5 years. They earn an associate's degree in 2 years, and then we prepare them for the bachelor's degree or meaningful employment. So our model is designed to provide students with the resources to surmount the typical challenges faced by first-generation students. So financial challenges, socio-emotional challenges, and academic challenges. We have 5 key pillars that we think are really very important. First of all, affordability. We have our tuition is aligned with federal and state aid, and we offer generous scholarships to students such that the average amount paid per year is around $1,000. We have a structured transferable curriculum that transfers obviously within Loyola University to the other colleges for bachelor's degree completion and to more than 70 other colleges within the state of Illinois and around the nation. Our students over the course of 2 years earn an Associate's of Arts degree in either social sciences, business, or liberal arts. And in addition to the liberal arts core, students can specialize in one of 10 concentrations or pre-majors, including accounting, communication, criminal justice, education, and pre-nursing among the 10. One of the things that I think you're going to see today, and one of the things that makes us, I think, really effective and a very amazing place to work, is the degree of collaboration between our faculty, staff, and administration. We collaborate on a daily basis to support individual student success and collective student success. We have a robust set of academic supports. I won't go into all of them, but among them, we have a first-year orientation and a first-year seminar. Most recently, we have a dedicated learning support specialist within the college. Obviously, we have all of the resources of Loyola University in general, too, the tutoring centers and such that exist there, but we have our own supplemental instruction and peer tutoring programs. We have a technology package where students receive a laptop. We also have an array of really critical student support programs and services, including 2 embedded social workers in our college, on-campus housing and residence life, and daily breakfast and lunch, and also a Arrupe market, or which is a food pantry. So we're really proud of the robust wraparound student support services that we have. We think that makes us that made us very effective during the pandemic. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John, who's going to outline the rest of the presentation, the much more interesting parts of the presentation, I think.
Thanks, Jenny. So as Jenny mentioned, Arrupe College is an institution which aspires to remove or at the very least attenuate the barriers many first-generation college students face. We do this by cultivating a sense of belonging and support within an intentional, inclusive, and physical campus space. Since many of the supports we offer presume the possibility of in-person, interpersonal communication, we immediately intuited that the transition to online learning, distance learning, would challenge our model. Our unexpected task, therefore, was not only to translate the whole of our instruction to a digital format, but also to cultivate community and belongingness through a computer screen. We were not left to our own assumptions, however. Students told us early on that the initial separation from campus life was alienating. Here are some excerpts from a survey we administered in the fall of 2020 to first-year students. Quote, "I miss the opportunity to interact with other students." Quote, "I really don't like working alone." And quote, "I really wish we met in person because the work being provided by the professor is very interesting, and I wish we could discuss it together." At base, this webinar is about how an associate's degree program designed to serve and support students underrepresented in the post-secondary education in person responded to the abrupt shift to online learning. It asks, how did a community-oriented associate's degree program adapt its model to the remote learning environment? Which strategies, principles, and programs developed in reaction to this sudden shift prove effective? And going forward, how might the college use these experiences as an opportunity to improve its curricular, co-curricular, and admissions practices? And in many ways, the literature affirms what we experienced at Arrupe College spring 2020 through summer 2021. In terms of academic retention and student persistence, Brian Trout finds that although online learning is a suitable modality for the many students who choose to learn in this way, students who elected to take in-person coursework but were forced into the online learning environment this past year experienced demotivation. That's a phenomenon. This is problematic in that the research also suggests that motivation governs the desire to self-regulate and task initiate, which in turn promotes student academic performance and retention. I'm going to turn things over to Isabel, who's going to talk about the research on admissions.
Sorry, I just wanted to interject there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Regarding mental health being exacerbated by the pandemic. So college students in general face higher levels of anxiety and depression comparatively to their peers. We all have a daily stress of family responsibilities, work responsibilities, and then our students on top of that are trying to balance their academic rigor of being an associate's degree, as well as the co-curriculars and trying to continue to be involved and connected with their peers. So that really added to the stress level of our students, and we really did see that through our social workers. On top of that, we all as well experienced stress from the pandemic. And there was a lot of uncertainty for our students and their families, whether that is with experiencing a job loss or a death of a family member. And oftentimes that was more traumatic than the virus itself, and especially around social isolation. Also in 2020, there was an increased trauma due to racial injustice with the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and the subsequent protests to seek social justice. And that really impacted the learning of our community members, and not just our students. Obviously, our faculty and staff were also impacted by this trauma as well.
Thank you, Sarah and John and Jenny, for bringing us to a little bit of information about our students. Just to give you a better picture of the students that are attending Arrupe College, like many students that are attending community colleges, our students are mainly first-generation college students. And they are also students who are coming straight out of high school. And so many of the obstacles that our current students at Arrupe College were facing were similar obstacles that our prospective students were facing. And so as many of you may know, there was a drop in overall college applications. And this was, for any student, whether they were attending community colleges or four-year institutions. At the community college level, research has told us that freshman enrollment dropped overall at a 23%. So 23% less students were applying to community colleges as first-year students. And we know that this was being highly impacted by the pandemic. Students were faced with the challenge of either joining the workforce or staying at home during the pandemic. There were many students who, especially in the fall of 2020, were facing the question of, whether students were going to be on campus, whether they would be successful to take classes online. And there was just a lot of uncertainty overall. And so this really kind of drew students to not apply, or to, for the students that even applied, to just defer to the following semester, to the following year. We know that overall that community colleges do house students who are highly, either high percentages of minority students and low-income students who were overall most vulnerable during the pandemic. And with high numbers of uncertainty and really just overall, the worry about catching COVID on campus for any reason, students were typically declining or sometimes just overall not completing applications. At Arrupe College, overall, we experienced a decline in a little over 15% in our overall applications for fall of 2020, and this is extended even for the fall of 2021.
We at Arrupe College and have been really intentional about creating belonging through from the admissions process and recruitment process all the way through to commencement. And it's infused in every aspect in instruction as well, creating community among our students, between our students and our faculty, through faculty advising. Belonging is really central to everything we do, promoting belonging, having students have opportunities to attach to the college, to each other, and to feel at home in higher ed is really, really central. And we realize that, you know, a lot of the way that we do that is through face-to-face interaction at the college. And so the online environment presented really particular specific challenges for us. And we worked, I think everything you'll see going forward in the efforts that we took was really motivated about how do we create spaces for students to connect with one another, to connect with us. And I think we were fairly successful in that.
So to bring you up to speed with how is it that we shifted and what we changed in the admission process and the enrollment process to Arrupe College, some of the changes that we initiated in the application process was that we waived our admission interview. So typically a student that applies to Arrupe College, in addition to sending us supporting materials and completing an online application, also has to attend an in-person admission interview. At the beginning of the process, not knowing exactly whether we would waive it or not, we tried to do online interviews with students, but we realized that many students did not have the technology at home or did not have an internet connection that would allow them to interview. And so we decided to waive the interview process, and this allowed for our students to not have to stress over coming to an interview or even interviewing online while they were already feeling the stress of living during the pandemic, since it was very recent. We also have decided to, in terms of our test scores, we've always actually had have never used test scores for our application process, except for our nursing pathway program. And so this was the decision that was made because we knew that many students were not able to take their SAT or ACT tests during the pandemic. And so we decided to waive the test score requirement for our nursing students. We developed many student-centered online events. So during the spring and into the summer, we decided to host many of our meetings with students online over Zoom. We do know that, especially because we typically are working with many students in Chicago Public Schools, the district really took a couple of weeks to really try and send as much technology to students and make sure that they were still in communication and taking classes from home. And so we were able to meet with students online. We hosted our Yield event, which typically happens in May or June. We hosted that completely online and tried to make it as fun as possible and as interactive as possible with students. We continue to host tours of our campus. We held them all outdoors in order to be safe with students. So we continue those through the spring and even into the fall of the following year. In addition to the tours, we would also meet with students online for presentations, and this was for recruitment for the following year. In terms of our yield and enrollment processes, the most important change that we made was that we waived our enrollment deposit. We knew that many of our students and families were facing economic hardship due to losses of jobs or anything that came from the pandemic. And so we decided to waive our enrollment deposit. We also continued to hold outdoor tours and to then eventually meet individually with students in person when it became safe. And then one of the factors that we deem is really, really important for our students is to not only just send students a financial aid package. We know that sometimes for families and for students, this can be a confusing part of the application process and the enrollment process. And so we hosted individual online financial aid meetings with students, in addition to phone calls with students in English and in Spanish for students and families. And these were typically very well attended. Many students and family members were able to attend these financial aid meetings. We started to host a series of what we called Lunch with Arrupe. We'd invite a small group of students on campus and hosted them for lunch in very small groups of students where we would offer them a tour and lunch so that they can meet our current students and really, start to form community on campus. And then in the summer, we hosted a summer block party. If you see the picture in this slide, it's one of the pictures that we took from our summer block party. We had an outdoor DJ, we had food outdoors. So it was a lot of fun to, for the first time, actually see some of our incoming freshmen. And we decided to invite all of our community members to this fun party.
Thank you, Isabel. Next, I wanted to kind of talk about how we transitioned our student support services during the pandemic. So we wanted to obviously address food insecurity, as many of our students through the surveys had let us know that was an area of concern. So the Arrupe market was actually created prior to the pandemic. And it started in 2019, partnership with the Greater Chicago Food Depository. So during the pandemic, obviously, our campus was closed, so we had to move our ordering system online, aka Google Docs, so students were able to order food for themselves and their families. Staff took turns 2 days a week packaging that food and then delivering it curbside pickup. And it was honestly, it was a great opportunity to connect with many of our students who we had never met yet in person. And just those quick, brief moments were a great touch point for us. Many of our community members were impacted directly through COVID, and we estimate about 17% of our students became directly impacted by COVID. And so accessing food at the market or any other market was a challenge. And we wanted to limit their exposure to others and having to go to the grocery store. So when students did notify us that they got COVID or somebody in their family did, we offered food delivery service through Instacart, and we would send those groceries to the students. We also expanded our non-tuition assistance fund. So in the past, prior to the pandemic, the non-tuition assistance fund was really directly related to academic needs such as books or school supplies, programs that they needed for class. But now, because of the great loss of jobs and or people being furloughed, we expanded it to include things like rent assistance, utility assistance, and cell phone were many of the things that our students use that. And that was prior to getting our HERF grants. We were able to get those funds that we were able to get through our development folks to students directly, which was a blessing. For technology, as Jenny mentioned earlier, all of our students do get laptops. That was something that we had done prior to the pandemic, but we expanded the technology support to include internet hotspots, as well as TI-84 calculators. All of our students are required to take math courses, and so that was just given to students so that they would be able to successfully complete their math courses. We also noticed that although they did get laptops, students were supporting their siblings or their other relatives with online learning. And so they were having to end up sharing one laptop. So students were able to check out an additional laptop from us if they needed it to support the online learning in the family. We were also really grateful to be able to offer telehealth for our counseling sessions. So immediately when we learned that the campus was closing, our social workers reached out to their students, letting them know and informing them that, you know, telehealth is on its way, and being in touch with them as much as possible. The rest of the staff, we kind of split up the cohorts. So all of our students are in smaller cohorts of, you know, anywhere from 18 to 20 students. And each of us took 2 cohorts in which we provided regular check-ins for students. We did it on a 3-week kind of rotation. Some students requested more check-ins than the 3 weeks, which we did. And it was really just a way to connect with them, see how they're adjusting to online learning, and to see if there are any additional resources that they need to be connected with. So we also wanted to offer a space for healing and processing. I was going through this presentation from my colleagues and just kind of going through all of the things that happened in 2020 and now 2021, and just there was just so much that happened. There was DACA uncertainty and the racial injustices that were taking place, and so we wanted to create the spaces for our students to be able to process what was happening. All of those obviously were virtual over Zoom. And then as a foundation, belonging is an important piece, as Jenny mentioned. And so we wanted to create events and spaces where students can gather and socialize. And so we created the virtual dance parties. We had a series called Coffee and Convo, in which there were different topics each week, whether that's sharing your pets or sharing your hobbies. And so students took turns kind of having those conversations. We created a space called the Arrupe Den, which was a weekly space, and it was taken advantage by our first year students who hadn't really got to meet other students, and it was an opportunity for them to play games. So they played the Jackbox games and Among Us and some other games that I know nothing about, but they were very excited to play. And then we also, as it became clear that the vaccination or a vaccine was on its way, and it was a requirement to attend classes here in the fall, we were able to be in partnership with the IFYC, which is the Interfaith Youth Corps, to secure funding for vaccine ambassadors. And those were current students who really kind of took the lead in educating other students about the vaccine and addressing vaccine hesitancy. They were even able to host a vaccine site on campus to kind of aid in access to the vaccine.
All right, I'm going to transition to persistence and retention. Arrupe College approached student persistence and retention in the online environment by both adapting some of its existing practices, as well as by creating new strategies and programs to identify students' issues early and to inform colleges' response and outreach. In terms of adaptation, first, the college held its student support team meetings, or SSTs, over Zoom. The student support team is an ad hoc committee convened at the student's discretion, which comprises the student, their advisor, their instructors, and then any college personnel who work with the student. SSTs are an opportunity for the student to articulate some of the challenges that are inhibiting their academic potential, set goals, and develop a strategy for meeting those goals. One unexpected benefit of moving SST meetings online is that in doing so, it removed the transportation barriers that were in place for students, especially those who commute at great distances to be with us, and making it easier for them to participate in the SST meeting. We have continued this practice, and students can now choose whether or not they want to attend their SST meeting in person or online. Similarly, we moved our midterm sweeps meeting, which is a semester review of student academic progress, which occurs between instructors, Office for Student Success, that's Sarah's office, personnel, and advisors. We moved that online permanently. And we found that the online chat features of Zoom allowed advisors and faculty and OSS staff to sidebar during the midterm sweeps meeting, which increased its efficacy. So, or effectivity. So we're going to continue doing that. Third, using the platform MyWC Online, we were able to continue offering individualized math and writing tutoring. Our writing fellows, which are sophomore students who are hired by the college to provide supplemental writing support to first-year students, are continuing to offer an online tutoring option as an alternative to in-person supplemental instruction. Again, the key here is to use technology to alleviate structural barriers such as transportation. For registration, we found that some course modes suited other course modes better for students. It really depended on the student. So we were very careful to highlight course modality, whether the course was synchronous, asynchronous, or semi-synchronous, so that students can make informed decisions about enrollment. And we have continued this practice as we work towards clarifying and simplifying course registration and advising processes for students. We learned how important it is that students have all the information they need to select classes that suit them. Finally, the university extended its withdrawal deadline to accommodate the sudden transition to online learning. And this has been a permanent move in this to give students more time to make an informed decision in regards to their coursework. We discovered that there was really no reason why the withdrawal deadline was what it was, and that we had the autonomy as a university to change that, so we did. And as one might imagine, this has decreased the number of F grades issued each term, which has had a tangible effect on student progress. So that's adaptable support. In terms of additional support, first, starting in the summer of 2020, we began administering what has come to be known as the Arrupe Community Survey. And this survey provides students with the opportunity to disclose issues related to their financial, physical, and emotional well-being. Students were invited to complete this optional survey each Monday of the term, and about a third of our students chose to do so. The college's response to these disclosures was tailored to how the student answered the survey's questions. So for instance, if a student responded that it was highly likely that they or their family would face a financial shortfall in the next 3 months, the college would reach out to the student with information regarding HEERF, its tuition and non-tuition financial assistance programs, the Arrupe market, and career services. Or like if a student responded that they were exhibiting signs of stress and wanted to be contacted by a mental health professional, one of our social workers would contact them by phone or email. And we have continued doing this in person. And students have responded similarly. during the pandemic, about a third of our students have responded to the survey this semester and have responded at least once during this semester. Second, needless to say, the sudden shift to online learning posed its fair share of challenges. However, it was also an opportunity for the college to assess the availability, the accessibility, and equity of its student support and retention services. To wit, this summer, we hired a retention and learning coordinator to help facilitate our retention and learning support programs and systems. In addition to allocating her time to the efficacy of existing and now modified retention and learning support practices, the retention and learning coordinator meets one-on-one and in small groups with students to help them secure learning accommodations through Loyola, coach them in their development of executive functioning skills, and assist in goal setting and attainment. That's something we hadn't offered before, and we're seeing the fruits of her labor this term as our enrollments, our first year retention shines.
So I wanted to share some takeaways from what we learned during the pandemic. There was opportunities for us to really take some new learning that we happened to stumble upon or engage with, and we wanted to kind of continue that. So one of the things is continuing to provide our technology support for students, which includes the hotspots, the calculators, the computers, as well as our math program that all of our students get, because although we are back in person now, that does not change the need for internet to for the students to work on their homework, for example. We also want to continue to support students holistically through the tuition, non-tuition assistance fund. And we're going to continue offering the Arrupe market. And prior to the pandemic, it was actually just for Arrupe college students. And then during the pandemic, we actually opened it up to all of Loyola University Chicago students. And we will continue to do that as we saw the need has increased. Prior to the pandemic, we provided about 700 pounds of food a year. During the year of 2020, we gave out about 9,000 pounds of food. So that is another area in which we want to continue to support and serve. Some of our functions are going to continue to be online, especially to assist students in transportation barriers. So our students come to classes on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And so Wednesdays then is an ideal time to have meetings for students. But if transportation is a barrier, having the opportunity to meet over Zoom, and whether that's a student support meeting or a meeting with their faculty member or an administrator, that can provide some relief for them. We also learned some things in regards to technology, and so many of our faculty, I think, are going to continue to bring technology into the classroom, and as well as continuing our response by providing the community survey, as John had mentioned, because like I said, the needs have not changed, and even after the pandemic, those will continue. And it's good practice to be able to know what they are and to address them as the students see fit. We also want to continue to offer online engagement for students during the recruitment process. I know also our career advisor is going to continue offering hybrid programming for the same reason of the transportation barriers. So providing them access to different events and programs where they can choose to be in person, or if they want to do a hybrid mode as well. And then we're also doing away with the admissions interviews. We want to continue to make Arrupe College accessible and the admissions process to be as easy and seamless for them. And so that is one way that we thought that would provide that.
Thank you, Sarah and Isabel and John. I think we can take questions now. Isabel's also has our contact information up there too, so we can answer questions over email too if they're detailed, but we have time now, I think 20 minutes or so. We'd love to have questions if you have them.
I have a question about the Arrupe market. How do you how did you go about like advertising or marketing that? And also, did you experience any hesitancy around students wanting to use it out of fear or shame? And if so, like how did you address that?
Yeah, good question. Well, the Arrupe market has definitely evolved. So as I mentioned, it started in 2019 in January. And so we did have that initial kind of hesitation and kind of like skepticism, but we kind of normalized it in the sense that we posted as much as possible on social media. We promoted it in our weekly newsletter that goes out to students. We even did samplings. So whenever we had a new product in the Arrupe market, our coordinator would go around and do taste samples and stuff like that to really kind of normalize it and also make it very approachable. During the pandemic though, I think because we weren't in person, more people did submit than in the past for the packaging. So I think once that was not a need in terms of actually coming physically in person and packaging it yourself and going into the space, that kind of eliminated that where we were the ones doing it and they just kind of drove up and we handed it to them. Now that we've moved back in person, one of the things that we did was it used to be kind of tucked away in it's an old closet, I'll just be honest, but now we've pulled it out and we've made it kind of central focal point of our Office of Student Services. So it's the first thing that you see, and students now just go in and use it openly, and I have not seen as much as that shame that I had a couple years ago.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was going to be another question, like where was the actual physical location of it? And so, yeah, pulling it out and making it central and, just a part of students, everyday path. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks.
Exactly. It just became a part of the community.
I guess another question. I think in the very beginning, you mentioned that you are putting students in a position to get their bachelor's degree within 4 to 5 years. Is that specific to Loyola or at any four-year institution in Illinois or elsewhere?
It's certainly, it's true within Illinois for colleges and universities that are part of the Illinois Articulation Initiative. And there are some majors that are definitely not conducive for students finishing in 2 years. So this, some of the science majors would require definitely 3 years. The nursing requires is an additional 3 years. But yeah, and some ones that would maybe be 6 years. Engineering would for sure be another 6 years, or would be total 6 years, so another 4 years. But within the liberal arts, within humanities, within the business programs, those are all fairly easy. Those are definitely doable within an additional 2. And we aim for that to keep it affordable for students too. We want to make sure that all of their credits that they've earned here transfer and apply towards the bachelor's degree. And the IAI is the Illinois Articulation Initiative is really critical for that.
Hello. So I have a question. My name is Travion Thomas, and I'm from Kellogg Community College. So I just wanted more information about the community survey because I think that's a really great idea. For our college, I feel like we only do surveys when it's relevant, and it's only like once a semester or maybe like once a year type of thing. But I love the ongoing and consistency with you all doing it every week because, yeah, students change. Like, my mood changes every day. But the fact is that you're capturing all those different things that are going on a weekly basis. I think that's really, really great. So can someone just share, I guess, what kind of questions did you ask? What was the process? Who all was involved? In either you had a committee or something to create the questions. Yeah, I'm just really interested in that for certain because I know we just started a new work group, which is the Students of Color Excellence Work Group, because we're really trying to focus on retaining and engaging and recruiting those students. And I love that you all hit on most of those things, talking about the different challenges and struggles that, the low income and first generation college students are going through. So yes, if anyone can share, I would love that.
Sure. The Arrupe Community Survey has gone through multiple iterations. It's been mostly a partnership between the Office of Academic Affairs, Career Services, and the Office for Student Success. Originally, we asked questions like, hey, how's that online learning going? But since then, we have discovered its utility as a way for students to self-disclose without maybe the discomfort of disclosing to an actual person, right? There's some distance. And we ask questions then related to first finances. So we want to know, we invite the student to let us know, whether or not they anticipate a financial shortfall, if they have a household earner who has been furloughed or lost a job, and that sort of thing. The financial security of the home is what we're trying to get at. We ask questions about employment, whether or not a student is satisfied with their work arrangement, whether they think they're working too many hours, too few hours, etc. And the aim there really is, on the one hand, financial, but also to help students who feel as though their work obligations are interfering with their ability to do well in school and to give time over to their academics. We look at mental health. So students select from a long list of symptoms, which suggests that there is stress present, and they can let us know whether or not they want a social worker to reach out to them about those symptoms. We also ask whether or not the student feels safe in their home or community environment. The final battery of questions, and we added this in the fall, relate to academics. It's a way for students to give us a temperature check on how they're doing in their coursework. And this addition is possible because we've added a retention and learning coordinator to our staff who can reach out to students who are feeling a little tepid about how they're doing in their coursework, and support them.
I just want to add that I think a really critical piece of the community survey is the rapid response, the rapid turnaround, in the sense that we're getting the information, and then within a few days the student's need is being addressed. And so for Sarah mentioned this, I think for students that identify that they have financial needs, we can turn around with either tuition assistance or non-tuition assistance to them. And if it's a mental health concern, we have a social worker. So it's a very rapid response, and we can do something about what they're identifying.
So part of the question was functional, and I want to recognize that. So the survey opens like week 3 of the term and closes week 12, and it stays open. Students can respond as often as they like. We remind students that the survey exists every Monday. So students get an email saying, hey, don't forget there's a survey. You're free to answer its questions. You're free not to. And when we receive response, we look at the responses on a weekly basis. Our retention and learning coordinator does. And then she directs students who have answered in a certain way to the given department that can assist them.
Thank you.
Is that, do students use like their names, or are there student IDs? How does that work?
We use Qualtrics, which is a university program that automatically captures that information. And we're upfront that like, hey, the whole purpose of this survey is not to be anonymous. So if that makes students uncomfortable, they're aware that we know who they are, and if that makes them uncomfortable, they shouldn't answer the survey.
Hi, good morning, almost afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for sharing with us. I am Nicole Del Mastro Jeffrey, and I'm a research assistant with OCCRL. I do have a question for you, and you might have gone over this and I may have missed it. I'm curious to know if you increased your social workers previous to folks coming back to campus. And my second question is, how long do you anticipate keeping the additional services that you've implemented?
So in terms of our social work staff, we've actually remained the same. So we have 2 full-time social workers and 1 case manager as a part of the team. And that was pre and post pandemic, and hoping to keep all of those positions as well moving forward. In terms of services, especially around like the tuition and non-tuition assistance. So we've been in good communication with our development staff and letting them know what our needs are, and that, you know, what we project those needs to be. And so hoping to be able to continue to offer those supports as well. But we also want to, you know, continue to kind of be aware. So most of our team are on, you know, different listservs and stuff like that, so that we're able to identify outside resources too, to connect the students with. You know, for example, this Friday, the city of Chicago is opening up the rental assistance application as well. And so, you know, that's something that we're going to make our students aware of. And so that's, we want to also stay in touch with the different resources and connect them, you know, in the city as well. So
I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is that we're relatively small college. We have around 300 students right now, total enrollment. And when we're designed to be small, when we hit our max size, we'll be around 400 students. So it gives you an idea of sort of our staff to and faculty to student ratio. We have 22 full-time faculty and about that many staff.
Well, I want to thank our colleagues from Arrupe College of Loyola University, Chicago, for presenting this wonderful information to us today. This was really great. And I want to thank everyone for attending. I think they posted their contact information in the chat. So if you wanted to reach out to them independent of this webinar, feel free to do that. But this webinar will also be posted on the CSCC website probably in about a week. So thanks everyone for your time today.
Thank you, Raina, so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.